Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Sam. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 9 of my favorite authors, the first book that I read from them, but then my favorite book that I've read from them. So first versus favorite. I did do this sort of post over on my Instagram, but it has been quite a while since I've done it. I don't think any of these books are going to surprise you, or really any of these authors will surprise you, but there are also so many authors that I did not add to this list, so I could possibly, do like around 2 of this. If you all like it, let me know, but let's just get started. So the first author that I'm going to start out with is Kandi Steiner. Now, let me backtrack. I'm not going to go too much into detail because there's a lot of books, so I tend to ramble. So I'm just going to give you like a basic synopsis or tropes of the book. Okay. So Kandi Steiner, the first book that we have that I ever read from her is Weightless. And I believe this is the one that she credits to really kickstarting her career. And so it feels really cool for me to be able to say that I read the book that kickstarted her career. And I believe it was back, I don't even remember when I read this book. It was a long, long time ago. But from what I remember, we're following a girl who has always been a little self-conscious about her body. And I think her boyfriend or fiance broke up with her and she's just still feeling really down and out about it. And so she decides she's going to hire a personal trainer, and she falls in love with her personal trainer. So that was the first book that I ever read by Kandi Steiner. And then my favorite book, Blindside. Okay. I love this book so much. And Kandi really does have some really good books too. Okay. But this one is my favorite because this one just touched me on such a personal level. I really just related to Clay so much. And that is pretty rare for me to relate more to a hero than a heroine in a book. But me and Clay Johnson, I'm like, I see you. And there was a moment in here that I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That is me. So this is sports romance and fake dating, but also spicy lessons. Oh, I love this book so freaking much. Okay. You all know, I love it. Okay. Next up, we're going to talk about Brittainy Cherry. I love me some Brittainy Cherry. Okay. So the first book that I ever read by her is Loving Mr. Daniels. This one is a teacher student, but they don't really know that, one is the teacher and then one is the student because they meet over summer. Our heroine, she was a twin and she lost her twin, and so she's grieving the loss of her sister. But she's still like trying to live her life to the fullest. And then she meets Daniels. Yes, that's his name. Okay. Mr. Daniels. They meet, I believe it's like at a bar one night, I think, and they hit it off, and then she goes to school and they realize, oh, you're my teacher and you're my student. But that it doesn't stop them for long. My favorite book, okay, let me grab it here. The Gravity of Us. Ooh. This book, okay? We are following Graham, and I forget our heroine's name. Let me see if I can find her in here. That's all Graham. Lucy. Okay. So Graham is a single father, very, very grumpy. He is also an author, and he is dealing with the loss of his father, who he did not really have a very good relationship with. And that is where he and Lucy meet. They meet at his funeral because Lucy is delivering flowers. And that's kind of when they also realize that they are connected in a way. I'm not going to tell you how they're connected, but they are, and that brings them together, and they have to try and figure things out. And it was just absolutely a stunning book, just beautiful. Love this book so much. Okay, then we're gonna start with, I have all these books just like laid out here, so I'm gonna be reaching, okay? Sorry if I get all up in your business. All right, we're gonna go with Miss Elsie Silver. The first book that I ever read by her was Flawless. We are following Rhett and Summer. Rhett is a bull rider, and he has found himself in a bit of trouble with some of the companies that he works for that sponsor him. And so he kind of needs to be on the straight and narrow. So his, I believe, manager, something like that, sends his daughter to watch over him, to babysit him. And things go from there. I did really enjoy this book, but you all know, what is my favorite Elsie book? Heartless. This is book 2 in the Chestnut Springs series, and Cade, Daddy Cade, is Rhett's older brother. Oh, Cade Eaton. I have yet, well, I guess I haven't found an Elsie man to top him yet, okay? She hasn't written him yet, and I don't know if she will, okay? Wes over here from Wild Eyes, he comes close. He comes in at a close second. But nothing tops Daddy Cade and Willa. This is a grumpy single father nanny romance. And let me tell you, Willa breezes into their lives and turns them upside down. She knows how to get under Cade's skin, and she does it so well. Their banter, the playfulness that they have, stunning. For me, this book, perfection, okay? Perfection. Now we're gonna move on to an author that I recommend all the time, okay? She's such an underrated author. More people need to read her, okay? So the first book that I read by Emma Scott is Forever Right Now. And when I read this book, I remember in my Goodreads review, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to read everything that Emma Scott has ever written. And I still have not accomplished that, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So this is following Darlene, and Darlene has a bit of a past, but she is trying to get her life back together. And she moves into this apartment, and that's where she meets Sawyer, who is a single dad to a very, very young baby girl. And he's also in school to become a lawyer. And he just has a lot on his shoulders. He really doesn't have a whole lot of time to do everything that he needs to do in a day. And so Darlene really steps in and helps him a lot with his child, and things go from there. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book, okay? But my favorite, and I could not narrow it down, I have 2 favorites. I'm going to talk about the one that might surprise you as being a favorite, and that's Full Tilt. This is book 1 in the All In duet, or Full Tilt duet. I forget exactly what it's called. Now, most people love the second book, which is All In, and that is because it does have an HEA. If you read this book, please go into it knowing that this does not have an HEA. There is no HEA in this book. But the way that our heroine knows the outcome, that she knows the outcome of this relationship, but she goes into it anyway because everyone deserves love, no matter what the circumstances are. And the way that she learns so much, and the happiness that it brings into her life, and then the happiness that it brings into his life. You will cry in this book, okay? It's such a freaking good book. And yeah, I had to put it here. And then you already know, Between Hello and Goodbye. This book, I was so obsessed with this book. I still am so obsessed with this book. I mean, I did a whole, you can't see it, but I got a chance to help design a cover for a Dark and Quirky booktube box, and I chose Between Hello and Goodbye. This is a city girl meets country boy. He lives on this very small town in on this very small island in Hawaii. He is a firefighter. And she goes over to, Faith is her name, she goes over to kind of get away from things. Her life isn't going how she wants it to, and she's messing up a lot in her job, so she goes to Hawaii. And she goes on a hike very first day and ends up hurting her ankle, and Asher comes in to rescue her. And then he feels a little bad because he's like, this is day one of your vacation, and you're not going to be able to see the beauty of this island. And so he really shows her around. He takes her food, and they fall in love from there. This is like right person, wrong time, just opposites attract. Oh my God. I love this book so much. Again, you will cry. Like pretty much any Emma Scott book. They're just so deeply emotional, but they're so good, and it's so worth it. It is so worth it. The next author we're going to talk about is Jewel E. Ann. Now, the very first book that I ever read by Jewel E. Ann was actually a recommendation from Cheyenne. See, now I feel weird because she's always going to be that tall book girl to me, but she's no longer like creating content through that tall book girl. She is now an author, Indy Valentine. So I still feel like I need to refer to her as that tall book girl though, because you all will know who I'm talking about, right? Anyway, she recommended A Place Without You. And this was, again, the first Jewel book that I had ever read. And I didn't love it. Sorry, Cheyenne, I know you love this book. But this is a counselor and a student romance. And they meet at sort of a Coachella type music festival. And they have a whirlwind weekend, but then they get back to reality. School starts, and he is her counselor, like guidance counselor, and she is a student. So very forbidden, also very emotional. I have two books as my favorite as well. I could not decide. And honestly, I could have added like one more in here too. I love Jewel. She writes very unique books and very different books too. And they're so emotional. I love her. Okay. Look the Part. This was the first 5-star book that I ever had from Jewel. This is a single father, very grumpy hero. He's, kind of emotionally off to the world, shut off. And we have Ellen. I think her name is like Elle, though. I think that's what she goes by. And she, again, comes barreling into their life, him and his sons, and flips it upside down. I cried in this book. Because the journey that Flint, our hero, goes on is just, it's wonderful. And the way that Jewel is able to do it, I love it. Flint is a widower as well, so his wife passed, and he just feels a lot of guilt because of that. He feels like he is the one to blame, so there's a lot of forgiveness that he has to go through in this book, forgiving himself. And then this is a newer read. And I love this book, and it's so weird because a lot of my friends did not like this book. I loved this book. Okay, I feel like I'm being really aggressive there, but I love this book so much. Sunday Morning. This is book 1 in her Sunday Morning series. The way that this book made me cry too, and I flew through this book. I read this book, I believe, in probably like a day and a half. We're following, what is her name? Sarah, who is a preacher's daughter, and she sort of has her life set out for her. She is dating this really good kid, and everyone thinks that they're going to get married, but she is left wanting more. She loves music. She would love to have, a career in, writing songs, playing songs, just being a musician. And then she meets Isaac. Isaac is her boyfriend's older brother, and Isaac is the bad boy. Okay, he is known as not being a very good influence, and he had to go and join the army, and people think that he got himself into some trouble, and so the family sort of forced him to join the army. But you learn that there is more to him and more to his story, and the way that Isaac shows Sarah really just everything that she's missing from life, it was beautiful. I love this. I know a lot of people didn't love Sarah as a heroine. She is a virgin, so she's very virginal, but she comes from a very religious background. I didn't mind it. I loved this book. I loved it. It was so freaking good. Okay, where are we gonna go to next? Let's do the queen of emotional damage, and that is Kandi Ryan, okay? The very first book that I read by Kandi Ryan was Longshot. This is a basketball romance, right person, wrong time, because our heroine is married, but she's not necessarily in a loving relationship. Her husband is very abusive to her, and she meets August. That's his name, right? Yeah, August. I was right. I shouldn't second guess myself so much. Okay. She meets August and they really hit it off one night, but she knows that, like, I can't be with him. And he kind of starts showing up in her life a little more, like at events and things like that. And so they just have always had this connection. But again, she's married. And also a little further throughout this book, she does end up having a baby with her husband. So things are just very complicated, and she doesn't know, like, how do I leave this situation and how do I be with August? This one, I would say, even though this is the first book that I read by her, it's still a favorite, but my absolute favorite is still, this is the last book in the Grip trilogy. I know I've talked about this book a lot. I feel like I have talked about this book a lot. It is just so, it's so emotional. And the love that Grip has for Bristol, like, this is what you want in a romance. This couple, Grip and Bristol, they go through so much. It's brother's best friend, and she is his, I believe, manager, because Grip is a rapper. They go through so much throughout their relationship, but then they suffer a very, very tragic loss. And the way that he shows up for Bristol when Bristol doesn't even want to show up for herself. Like, Grip is what you want in a man, okay? He's what you want in a man. He's not gonna, you know, leave when times get tough. And I love that book. Okay. We'll go with Carrie and Cole next, okay? The first book that I ever read by Carrie and Cole is Torn. And this, I feel like, it's a very controversial book. This is a very big age gap romance, but also our hero in here has known the heroine from birth. So he is her father's best friend and once bandmate. And so he's been kind of like an uncle to her, but the older that she gets, their relationship changes. And then I believe she's 18 in this, so there's no, like, weird things going on, but she's still very young, and it was a very prominent part of her life. So I know that's why a lot of people don't like it. I ate this book up, okay? This was the first, like, ever big age gap forbidden book that I ever read, and I still really like it. I know what's wrong with me, but they were perfect together. But my favorite is No Tomorrow. Ugh, another emotional damage book, okay? Wow. This one is following Blue, who is homeless. And we have, I forget her name. I should know these names. I should have written them down, but I didn't. I don't remember her name. I know our hero's name is Blue. But she meets him on her lunch break from work. She sees him in the park with his dog and he's playing music. So she talks to him and then they start a relationship from there. But Blue has some mental health issues, and he really has to work on himself. And he ends up running off one day and he doesn't tell our heroine where he's going. And she also ends up pregnant. So she hears his music one day on the radio and she's like, I have to find him. I have to go and see him. So she ends up buying tickets to his concert and gets VIP access, and things go from there. This is a very emotional book, could be triggering because of the mental health that is in here, the addiction that is in here. So just be wary going into it. But the journey that these two go on is a hard one, and it's a hard fought HEA, but it was so worth it. Next up, I have a dark romance queen, okay? She is so good at writing a not even morally gray hero, but like just an awful hero, but you still love him because there's more to him, okay? She does these men so well, and that is Sam Mariano. Untouchable was the first book that I ever read by Sam Mariano, and this book starts out with a bang, okay? We have our hero who is forcing himself upon our heroine. So you're not supposed to like him, okay? But the way that Sam is able to just, I don't know, the way she writes these heroes, I don't know how she does it, but you end up rooting for them, okay? They're not good people, but you love them. My favorite though is Even If It Hurts. Whew, I flew through this book. I read it in a day. This is one that I definitely want to reread because I know that she is currently working on writing the rest of the books in the series. This is the first book in the Coastal Elite series. And what she wants to do, because they're going to be so connected, she wants to write them all and then release them all. So I need to reread this and then like get caught up because I'm currently not caught up. This is following Aubrey and Dare, and this is a high school bully romance. Aubrey has to take care of her mother because her mother is sick, I believe, with cancer. So she really does not have a very normal teenage, fun, carefree lifestyle. And Dare is very wealthy. He's part of the popular crowd, but he is a bit of a psycho. And he has his eyes set on Aubrey, and he's not going to take no for an answer. This man, there are things in here that I'm like, oh my God, that's freaking brilliant. What he did, you're crazy, but you're brilliant, okay? Your mind is, whoo, impressive, okay? Now, the last two authors that I am going to talk about are not romance authors. The first one is a newfound love for me, a newfound favorite author ever, and favorite books ever. And the first book that I read is still the favorite book that I have read, and I've read quite a few since reading this book, but Kristin Hannah's The Nightingale. This is a World War II historical fiction book following two sisters who are kind of doing their own part in resisting, surviving the war in their very small little town in Paris, or France. So emotional damage. Have your tissues ready. Such a beautiful story. Such a beautiful story. And then I'm going to end with Miss Taylor Jenkins Reid. The first book that I read by her is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a historical fiction. For me, historical fiction is more like way in the past, and this one takes place in the 50s, which, I mean, that is way in the past, but not quite like, a World War II book. I don't know why in my head, that's just the way it is. So yes, this is a historical fiction, and we are following Evelyn Hugo, who was a very, very popular actress in the 50s, and she had 7 husbands, and one of our main characters in here is tasked with interviewing her and Evelyn is telling her her story. So good, so freaking good. But my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book is After I Do. This is a book that has stuck with me for so very long. I love this book. Now, don't go into this expecting a romance, okay? It does have an HEA, but the relationship aspect it's not what this book is meant to be like focused on, and what it's meant to be like, you're meant to get something else out of it, okay? We're following a couple who they're just not very happy in their relationship. They've become complacent when they were once very much in love and, just did little things for each other. But now they've found themselves just not caring as much as they used to. So they know something needs to change, but they don't want to just call it quits and get a divorce. So they decide that they're going to take a year away from each other. And in this year, they are not allowed to contact each other. And so you're following the wife, Lauren, who she's just kind of finding herself again. And that's really all I want to tell you about this book. But it is just a beautiful journey. And I would recommend if you've been married for a long time, and even if you're happily married, still read this book. Okay? I think you would get a lot out of it. I love it so much. Okay, so those are all of the authors and the books that I have for this. If you'd like to see another one, let me know, because I definitely there's a lot of historical romances that I didn't put out in here. There's a lot of fantasy, a lot of thrillers, even more romance authors that I could do a second round of this. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a round 2 of this. And if you have made it to this point in the video and you'd like to let me know, leave me a number 1 in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye. I feel like I did that really awkwardly. Bye.